And there's something that you offer that other companies, I've never seen this before. I would say it's unheard of in the industry.
And then it just it hit me. It was like, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do something like this? And companies hiring, they're beefing up, man. Here we go. And bam, COVID hits. You have to really identify, am I going to have a relationship with this company or not?
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. So go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today we are fortunate enough to have Bill Kasko, the CEO of Frontline Source Group. They're a nationwide company. He's got 25 years in the staffing industry. He's transformed talent acquisition from a transactional expense into a powerful business growth engine. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
For sure. I'm excited to chat with you. And I have to say, one of the things that stood out the most is the success you guys have had with Trustpilot. Ranked number one for best employment agency, ranked number one for best executive search, ranked number one across man. So I gotta know. Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's interesting that you bring it up because I've just gone round and round with them about renewing or not renewing. And, as a owner of a company, an entrepreneur person getting into it, we're so strong on the Google reviews. Everybody wants, you got to build that trust and everything, right? And so when we first had it, when we first started, really, it was Google reviews. But what we ended up finding out was that we had people doing reviews that had absolutely nothing to do with us, or were upset because they would call us and we'd say, I'm sorry, we don't place painters. We don't place welders. And they would go on there and they'd give us a 0, or they'd write, if I could give them lower than that, I'd give them a 0. And so what we found out was that the fact that we couldn't help everyone, first of all, that's not how that works, but they would do that. And there was absolutely no recourse for us with Google. Yeah. There was nothing you can do. I mean, we could put in there, oh, I'm sorry, we don't place that, but you were stuck, we're stuck with 0 reviews or 1 stars forever. They never go away. And so we decided that just wasn't the right thing to do. We needed to find a better platform that allowed us real reviews with real people of real experiences who could speak about it. And boy, I'll tell you, that was one of the best things in our 21 years we ever did, was to actually engage with Trustpilot to go a different route with those reviews.
Smart, being evaluated on what you're actually doing, versus those people out there, we call them the keyboard jockeys, they're sitting at home. People rain on their parade when they got no parade of their own.
Well, and it's really hard because for the most part, our business is contingent. So we're only successful and grow when we're successful and are able to grow. So if we work really hard to help someone in a career change or help a company out, and then some person that we've never heard of before, we don't have any clue, is upset because we don't place dishwashers and they give us it's horrible to know that can take place. And I think on top of it, I understand a lot of this has to do with the trust factor. I mean, we all look at reviews and go, are they really real or are they not? And I think that's what kind of comes into play. Also, I get what Google's trying to do with all of it, but there's a point at which you have to say they need to be accountable also. I mean, it's not just the business, but someone who's doing a review who can hide behind that, who doesn't have to worry. It could even be a disgruntled ex-employee doing that. It's just, I think it's horrible in my opinion. Overall, I don't believe in the way that some companies do those reviews, where it's almost like, do a review and fill it out, and then we'll talk to you about if we're going to hire you. And that is one of the unfortunate things in our business that they do to them. So when I look at some of the competitors and they have 1,500 reviews and they're all 5-star, it does make you kind of wonder, did they really do that or not? So it's something you don't think about when you decide to go into business and start a company.
Yeah. So, okay. So how did you go into business and start a company? What was the market thing that you looked at and was like, I need to do this,
Yeah. So I went to work, originally got into the business with, I think looking back, it was the best company. So I went to work for Robert Half International in the technology group. And at the time it was called Robert Half Technology. And by far, as I said, looking back, it was a blessing. They're at the time an $11 billion company, whatever. And, was able to walk in, plant my flag. I was, an IT guy by design. So it was easy for me. I wasn't a sales guy and I really wasn't a recruiter, but I understood IT. And back in the day, around 9/11 time, you didn't have a lot of people that really understood that. So I was able to go in and talk the talk because I had walked it and I understood it, which was great. But what I didn't like about the large company like that was that their plan was to build, 350, 500 offices all across the country. And they wanted it into this micro way of operating so that in one town you would have all of these offices and overhead and expenses. And it just didn't make sense to me. So I was in downtown Dallas. I had an area I was only able to sell that was like 7 miles around that office. Well, that was horrible because I could have a client, literally an opportunity on the other side of the street. And I thought that's ridiculous. Or I would have a candidate that I wanted to represent, but I couldn't because they were 10 miles away. I only could feed and fish in the pond that I was around. So when I started the company, my idea was to say, it's not about the best client and job order that you're going to fill. It's about the best candidate. I don't care where they're located. And so really took it from the idea. Originally, I'd started the company as IT. It was going to be IT consulting, doing high level SAP ERP system rollouts. That's what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
21 years later, we have never placed one of those individuals. It never even got off the ground like that. It instead really built it around the idea of listening to your client. And so it was shut up and listen to what they need. Quit trying to cram product down their throat and instead understand what they have a need for. And I had no clue where I was going with this because the first position I had was a high level person in accounting. And the client called and they had this need. And I thought, okay, I don't have anything else right now. I'm sure, let's do this. I'm just trying to do it anyway. And I filled it. And I went, well, that wasn't difficult. And what I was learning was that if you're really good at recruiting and you can recruit, then you're listening to people and you understand what they have a need for, and you understand the need of the person who's looking to make a career change. And that's what I really started the company based on. I built it on these 3 pillars: people, process, and service, which we trademarked, thank goodness, but build it around the people, have an incredible process of how you're going to drive this thing, and then have the service that comes into play. So I took an old little deal out of an old Seinfeld episode. And if you know Seinfeld at all, there's an episode with the Castanza theory. And George decides that he's unsuccessful and everything. He's going to do the exact opposite. And that seems to work for him. And Jerry challenges him that if that's the case, there's a girl at the counter at the little deli, and says, hey, she's looking at you. He walks over and he goes, I'm unemployed, I'm balding, I'm 40, my name is George. And she kicks the chair back and says, have a seat. And so I did the same thing. I built the company based on, don't do it like everybody else. Build a company based on the opposite of what other people do. Have more recruiters than you do the salespeople. Build it on trust, relationship, which goes back to the Google thing, which goes back to you've got to build that trust. And so one of the core values for us is about the honesty. And so because of that, you always want to be building that trust factor. So you want the best tool so that people understand this is real. This is really who we are. We cannot make everyone happy. We walk away from more deals and more opportunities probably than any other company in our space. We will be honest to say that's not for us. We're not going to be successful. Why? We don't like to lose. So I would much rather tell people up front, have that conversation and hope that they come back. It's interesting over 21 years, though, the way that the environment has changed. I mean, look at what we've been through in 21 years. Yeah. And so it's not the same today. It's a lot different. I mean, none of us like to be sold to anyway, but it's not the same as it was 20 years ago. Even the employment market and finding people, it's just a lot different. And I have people that will reach out to me and say, hey, I want to start my own company. And I just take a deep breath and I'm like, do you really have it in you? And do you really understand what it's going to take? Because it's not so simple and easy. This is not a cakewalk. This is every 4 to 6 year up and down wave that we go through, and especially in this industry. And we're coming out of like a 4 to 6 year wave right now. We just went through it last year. So we were coming out of it. November, we probably bottomed. And we really felt like we were coming out of it. And of course, then we got hit with, I don't even know what you want to call the first quarter of tariffs and everything else, but everybody just kind of held back. I mean, there's still a lot of activity. It's just different. And then, of course, the technology change. The technology change for us over 20 years Man, that's like an entire show to talk about over 20 years.
Yeah, I think having that insight, because there are a lot of fresh companies that are really only a few years old, some of them even a few months old, haven't been through those 4 to 6 year waves, and so having more than 2 decades of experience, you've seen this many times.
Yeah, and it's funny because I tell people, look, when I started the company, we had like 3 fax machines, and I'll have people go, what are you talking about? I go, fax machine, it sat there. And they're like, oh, they didn't come virtually by email? I'm like, no, that was way advanced. I mean, if you told somebody that's what was going to happen, they questioned whether that would work. But, we would go, leave for the weekend, come back to the office on Monday, and the fax machines had been running all weekend. And there would be paper all over the floor for sure. You had 3 fax machines because they would run out of paper, by the way. And it wasn't because it was nonstop. It's because when the first one would run out of paper, it would kick onto the second machine and to the third machine. And so you would have to put together the resumes that were all over the ground, pulling those together. Before that time, I mean, they used to come in the mail. And so the mail, we would go and get the mail, open up the envelopes, go through the resumes, and then you would have the accordion files. And it was just labor intensive. Yeah. As time has gone on now, look where we're at. I mean, we're at a place where they automatically go into our system. We have AI submitting resumes for people. LinkedIn's the one that I'm surprised it made it, but I guess not. But looking at it today, for some recruiters, if they didn't have LinkedIn, it's not even true recruiting, in my opinion, right? But that's what they consider to be recruiting, is LinkedIn. And so it's just so much different than it used to be. Looking at the want ads in the Sunday newspaper, that's where we got our leads from clients. Today it's not the same thing. Again, it goes back, people don't want to be sold to. So we relationship build, we build that trust factor. We have more clients today that reach out to us to engage in a search, from them reaching out to us than us actually reaching out to them. That outreach is reversed. Never in a million years thought I would see that, but it's because they don't want to be sold to. They want to do business. They truly want to do business with people they want, but they want to know the value. They want to know what they're going to come back. I always laugh and I tell people, my wife, she's never once come home from like a shopping spree with our daughter at Neiman's and walked in the door with bags and said, look what I paid full price. I've never once heard that. And it's the same kind of mentality with employers and clients today. They're looking for the deal, and some of them will pay, full price, I guess you would call retail, but there's no real need to. I mean, the competition's pretty furious out there. You can kind of work things down, but there's also a bottom. There's a piece at which sometimes, for us and our expenses of what it takes right now to find and to place people, employers, it's 10 times more than it was 20 years ago. And I think people have a hard time believing and understanding that, because I always think, well, technology's improved and you guys should be more efficient. Honestly, Jules, I say the same thing to like our web guys every year. I'm like, I don't know how you're charging me more, because I know the cost to storage has come down. And they're like, yeah, but security's gone up. You're like, okay, I guess you're right. And it's the same thing. I mean, for us, there are expenses that we never had before, government expenses we never had before, just background security, the way that we have to encrypt information today. Never would have even thought about it 20 years ago.
Yeah. The fax machine expense is gone, but all these other new expenses take that place. And there's something that you offer that other companies, I've never seen this before. I would say it's unheard of in the industry, the 5-year placement warranty.
Yeah, that's a really great story. So it goes back, and it's, when I tell this story, sometimes I cringe a little bit because people think differently of it, I guess, when they hear it. But we were buying our daughter her first car, right? 16 years old. It's a used vehicle, but we wanted to make sure, it was going to be really good. I had always driven like a Lexus. My Lexus guy had a used vehicle. This is where the horrible part is, that I'm buying our daughter a Lexus, right? And, but it was used. I got to preface, it was used. It was a good price. And we're sitting there, I'm doing the financing. She's sitting next to me and we're signing the paperwork. And the lady says, hey, by the way, you get a 5-year warranty. My daughter says, oh, it's just kind of like what you guys do. And I looked at her and I laughed and I said, we would never do that. And then it just it hit me. It was like, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do something like this? I mean, everybody else does it a certain way. And if we're going to do the opposite, why wouldn't we take a look at it? And so I walked away from that thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. We were already doing things that were different. And we already had a manager trip planned. We were going to Vegas. And so we rented out a room at Bellagio, and I locked all of us into the room for an entire day. And I said, we were not coming out of there until we figured out how to make this work. And we worked through a million different scenarios on how to make it work. But what we found before that was that it wasn't an issue, actually. It wasn't a problem. And that goes back to the selling like on a negative. Why do we sell on a negative? Why do we sell that we have a 90-day replacement? Are we planning to replace them in 90 days? I mean, why? Instead, sell on your numbers of success and on the fact that our people, they stay. We had like less than 1% leave or get fired or whatever. You're going to have people that it just doesn't work out. That's going to happen. Nobody's perfect. But instead, what we found out was that like 97% of our people get promoted in the first year. So why weren't we looking at it differently? Why didn't we say, hey, you're going to have to replace that same position? If we've already done it one time before, the odds are really, really great that we're going to be able to do it again. And so we came up with something that was totally different. And we've had that for over 10 years. In fact, during COVID, there was a book, it's called The American Entrepreneur, that came out, and they did a whole chapter on it and talked about how we came up with it and the idea behind it. And I wasn't afraid to share it because in the industry, when we first did it, the amount of hate mail that I got, hate emails,
right,
was crazy. I mean, I would get these emails from owners going, "You're stupid, you're insane," and I literally would say, "Okay, thanks." But at the end of the day, and especially after COVID and all the companies that had to shed positions, when those clients came back and they said, "Hey, I know that we had to lay these people off, and our 5-year warranty doesn't really work," and we said, "You know what? Let's figure it out. Let's give you," and that's our big thing, is options. Mm-hmm. And so instead of just selling one or two things, what we want to do is truly be partners, truly have options for employers that are different than everybody else. And you just don't come up with these things overnight. We've had a lot of people that have tried to copy it, and that's great. I love that. It's like the best compliment you can ever give me. I can't trademark that or protect it in any way, unfortunately, but you know what? That's a compliment. And I say, try it. And everybody has their own way to do it. And I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've experienced some huge successes, and you're clearly like one of the market leaders as far as how you're positioned. So we definitely have this massive success front. How is it now that we are experiencing a unique and uncertain market? How is it that you're experiencing growth challenges? What are you kind of like smashing your way through at the moment?
Yeah. So there's multiple different parts. We got to break it up into kind of two. When I look at hiring, in the way that we look at hiring, you have what's called the direct hire side. So whether it's through an agency, through an executive search firm, or the employer they hire someone directly on as a W-2 employee. And then the other side of it is what we've traditionally always called like the staff augmentation or the contract or temporary side of the business, where they will use an outside company to bring people in to supplement the ups and downs of what's taking place. And if you look over history of the ups and downs of the hiring and employment waves, if we go back to, even if you go back to like 2001, after 9/11, we went to a recession. You had companies laying off people, but they hired a lot back as contractors because they needed to cut the expenses, but they still had to have the people working. We also, though, at that time had this pool, they used to call it, of people. So if you think about back then, we had Hot Jobs, we had Monster, you had Career Builder, you had LinkedIn, but it was different of what it was doing. But you had, I call them like the big three, right? You had those big three. Yahoo was like at the top of their game at that time. We had Craigslist, that before it went off the edge, actually was a place where people would go, and they post jobs and things. So you really had bigger pools, lakes even, of these people. And so when you had a layoff, boy, they went to this lake. There was plenty to pick from, and they would take contract or temporary types of roles. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now we go forward a little bit in history, and we end up with the Great Recession in 2008. The Great Recession. So if you have a recession, you normally see direct hire dropping, and you see contract temporary business go up. During the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, you had direct hire stop and you had contract stop because there was no money to be lent. The banks, nobody had money. Yeah. Now, we were really blessed in Texas. We had the Barnett Shale, the natural gas shale. Fracking was really just coming around at that time. Man, we were busy. For us as a company, we had hundreds of people on contract for these natural gas companies, and we made it through it. Fantastic. Now go forward. We come out of that, we go through another little boom. We're based in Dallas. We're expanding because of oil and gas, energy. We're all through Texas now. Now we're in Oklahoma. Now we're going into Denver. We're like following the path of oil and natural gas. We're like spreading out all over the place. Oil tanks, right? Oil's like at $200 a barrel. Remember, it was like $5 a gallon. And then overnight it goes to like 40. They let everybody go. So we go through another little riffle. You go through these ups and downs. The companies and people figure out which two ways they're going to be hiring or what the two avenues are. So you have these two sectors of direct hire business or contract business, and you're kind of floating in between. But in between all this, now we have this whole next generation of the Fiverr and doing stuff, and the gig economy starts, and everybody is like, hey, I want to kind of work when I want to. I don't want to do this. Well, that pool, pond, lake, it's like a bird feeder. I mean, there isn't a pool out there. So we start seeing that all of a sudden it's changing. 2014, 16, we really start going through like another change that's taking place of what the hiring patterns are and what people are doing. But the big thing is we start running into 2020. And so right before we go into COVID, you've got contract temporary type business dropping, and the perm business, the direct hire companies hiring, they're beefing up, man. Here we go. And bam, COVID hits, right? And what are we going to do? Nobody knows. Nobody has any clue. And so they shed all of these roles and positions. Fun fact, even at 13% unemployment, we still had 87% of the people working. Mm-hmm. Why? Because we figured out how to go remote. Remote had always been kind of, the technology was getting there, video interviews. We started that when gas was so expensive. So a lot of us, including employers, we were already kind of working through that. But guess what? Hot jobs, they were gone. Monster and Career Builder, pretty much on their way, slowly kind of rolling down. Social media, everybody thought, again, like Facebook, that was going to change everything. Recruiters won't be in business. That didn't happen. We started seeing the technology embrace. And as we came out of COVID, guess what? The hiring took off. Again, these companies had to hire. So we went through this next pattern of this hiring. Again, you got a technology change. Here we go through with AI that's going to take place. So AI starts coming into play about the time in 2023 of the Great Resignation, which I kind of call, it was almost like the employee revolt, right? It was like their revolution took place. They demanded to be paid more. And guess what? They were going to use the technology to their advantage. They were going to work the system. So they were going to work with recruiters, and they were going to interview for positions, and they were going to go through all the steps, and they were going to get the offer. And when they got the offer, they were going to go back to their employer with absolutely no intention of actually leaving. But they knew they were going to push it. They would go back to the employer to give their 2-week notice. The employer would say, oh, no, you can't leave. We can't lose you. They were going to probably get about a 10% increase over here on their pay.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 to 12. They would tell the employer, make it around a 15 to 16% increase. The employer would give it to them. Why? Because the employer knew that if they had to go and hire the recruiter, they were going to have to pay 20 to 25% of what that annual salary was.
Yeah. Wow.
So what you ended up with were employers who were upset, who got burnt. And as we are going through this next thing that we're in, you have AI, and everybody's saying, well, AI is going to put recruiters out. That's not going to happen either. But what you do have are those people, a lot of them, who were the ones that did that to the companies. They were the first ones to get cut. And guess what? We still do not have a pool, a pond, or a lake of people out there. We have people that are back on the market, but they're not so eager necessarily, and companies aren't so eager anymore just to hire a body. They're really looking for and scrutinizing everything, which is causing a kind of a delay because the company isn't sure what's going to take place. We don't have a clear message. I think last night after the weekend and the US and China met, we finally have maybe a clear idea. I know at least we have 90 days, which I'll take it, where it'll clear up a little bit. But companies need to hire. There is so much pent up demand right now for employers and the companies to hire the people they need. It's ridiculous. Current employees in companies are working more hours. They're having to pick up slack. They're tired. They're scared also because they know that if they don't do the extra right now, the company needs to cut. They'll cut. companies have done a lot of cuts, but smaller amounts, non-revenue generating positions. In particular, the recruiting business. This is a horrible time right now to be a recruiter and be on the market. We had one open position for an executive recruiter, less than 12 hours. It was like 6,000 applicants for one position.
Wow.
And we had to shut it down. It was ridiculous. And so it's like different sectors and areas, but also a lot of people got into recruiting because it was quick, easy, fast money. And that's not the game. That's not how this works. This is a long-term play. Companies that do business with us want to do business with us because they know we're going to be here. That relationship long-term, but we go through the same thing. We've been through those ups and downs. Unfortunately, sometimes when it starts to fall off, you do have to cut back. And that's what's difficult when you have a service business, is really taking a look at it, understanding what that business model is, but also you've got to look at it to understand, like, we don't have a menu. I don't have a menu. This isn't the drive-through at Wendy's. I mean, I don't have that. Yeah. And so instead, we have to create opportunity and create options for our clients and look at things differently about we sell people, which that's already kind of weird and creepy, right? So we have to figure out a different way to do it. We also have to figure out, what's their need? How do we add value at the end of the day? And like I said in the beginning, we're not for everybody either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that brings us to a really interesting point, which is on your end, on the company on the frontline end, you guys are able to provide this amazing service, but who do you provide it for? So in other words, how do you identify who is a good fit for Frontline?
So it's funny because we have clients that are 5-person companies. We've done massive projects for the government. And so we look at everything based on a holistic understanding of the relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different way to look at things, right? Because normally you look at it and go, oh, well, they're going to hire 100 people. We need to do business with them. No, that's not true. So we look at it as, what type of relationship are we going to have? I have a call right after we finish here today, and we've been going back and forth with the CEO and a CHRO of a large company with a large footprint. And they approached us through a recommendation, which referrals, which we're big on the referral side, which is another piece. So instead of, for example, having this huge sales team, we do a referral program where when a new client or a client refers a client to us, we do a donation to a charity of their choice in their name. And I feel like I'd rather spend money on giving something back than I don't have to have 100, like I said, I don't have to have 100 salespeople like everybody else. Our clients speak the volumes. They actually can close the deal for me better than I can half the time. So you have to really identify, am I going to have a relationship with this company or not? And when we talk about relationships, we talk about, am I going to be able to speak with a person, or am I going to have to speak with a computer, with a server, with a vendor management system where I'm just submitting resumes and that's it? And we made a decision years ago not to be in that space. That's a multi-billion-dollar business to be in that. And if we wanted to get into that business, we could. But what we have found is that the success of that is low pricing, low relationship. There's just not a lot we're giving back.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I hear recruiters tell me all the time, oh, I got into the business to help people. And that actually scares me, right? Because you can't help everybody. We're not the Red Cross. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you have to go over here. That's a different place. We're in sales. We're in sales to sell people. To do that, we have to understand them. And then we have to have a platform to talk about them and to show why. Our big thing is the why. Why does this person want to make a change? Why is this a good opportunity for them? Why does that company make sense? Why do they even want to work with us? And if it doesn't all line up, then we walk away from it. Because I'd rather have fewer clients and have more placements than have hundreds of clients and not be successful all day long. And so when you look at that client relationship, would I love to do business with Google? Sure. I'm not going to say no. I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would have that ability unless we were able to pick up the phone and call a hiring manager and have a conversation. I understand that they have policies in the way that things have to be done. But if I can't talk about John and how John, this is what he did, and make sure that it's something personal where not only that client knows that I represent John, but John knows I'm representing him as well,
Mhm.
I don't feel like it's worthy of us spending the time.
Yeah, I mean, well put. And I think that client-centered approach goes very far and is probably one of the big keys to your success. So where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So, I mean, our website is frontlinesourcegroup.com. So just the name of our company. We made it really difficult. So it'd be simple and easy. It's long, but it makes it easy. And then, LinkedIn. There's no doubt. In fact, it was funny. I was reading this morning, LinkedIn just changed their algorithm again. And they keep changing it. LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft. And so the beauty of that is that technology is built in there. But our LinkedIn company page, following that page, updates that we do, articles that we continuously write, our recruiters write, that we post. I think we do, it may be like 150 different things that we post every month to 200, just information, news that we give back to people. But LinkedIn is the place to be. Whether you are looking for a position, and I'm not paid by them or anything. It's just the way it is. That's where you need to be on the professional side. If you're looking for an opportunity or you're looking for understanding what's taking place in the market, it's the place to be. And it's funny, like I said, the algorithm changed this morning. And so a normal social media, Facebook, Twitter, you post, it goes out. Boom. Well, LinkedIn changed it this morning. And now you could post something, but if I'm connected with you, I may not see it for a couple of days. It may not show up in my feed. So they've changed it to really get people to engage in these conversations. It used to be like Instagram, you hit the like button and boom, 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 right? Well, LinkedIn has a like button too, but honestly, clicking the like button does absolutely nothing for you. They want you to have conversations. They want you to put in a couple sentences. They want you to read through what other people are saying. They want you to really look at the value that comes with it. And if you invest in that, it is an unbelievable tool of not just from a career standpoint, but the knowledge base of all types of information around business that is there, whether it's from web development to accounting to marketing. It's an incredible tool, and it's really evolved into so much more over the years that I really can't believe I'm as active on it today that I am, because I never would have thought that in a million years. But those are probably the two best ways. Connect to me on there, look it up, send me an invite, tell me, you heard this here. Definitely reach out and put you in touch with the right people.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I'm really surprised about LinkedIn, but viewers, listeners, just go ahead and look right down below in the show notes, and you're going to see all of the right links. They'll take you to all the spots where you can connect with Bill personally. You can check out the Frontline Source Group. Bill, fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for all your time. It was an honor.
Yeah, for sure.